Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon once again, and I am Janal Verma, head of ADR. Very warm welcome to all the panelists and all the other participants and people there in the audience. Today, we have a panel of eminent experts who will share their views uh, from their respective fields of work. One is a politician, somebody is a journalist, we have an academician, and we have uh, activists also. And the topic is very relevant and pertinent as of date. So I will leave the details to be spoken by the respective panelists. I'll just give a very brief background of what the status is of the PILs which were filed. Now, in 2017, ADR had filed a petition challenging the Finance Act of 2017, the Electoral Bond Scheme, and the removal of the company's limits to donate to the political parties. In March 2019, ADR and Common Cause filed another application for the stay of the sale of electoral bonds for the general elections. The Supreme Court gave a hearing, and on 12th April 19, they gave an interim order wherein they asked all the political parties which had received funding through electoral bonds to submit details in a sealed cover to the Election Commission of India by 31st May 2019. Uh, so that was done by the political parties, and at that point of time, the Supreme Court had remarked that it is a very important matter, grave matter, weighty matter, and it needs to be heard in detail. But that was the end of it. No hearing was held after that. So, since then, the ADR and Common Cause have filed four applications for stay on the sale or purchase of electoral bonds till 9th March 2021. On 15th November 2022, ADR filed another additional affidavit against the amendment made to the Electoral Bond Scheme on 7th November 22 by the government, which allowed additional 15 days for the sale of electoral bonds to be specified by the central government in the year of the general elections or state assembly elections or union territory elections. On 1st December 22, we filed another supplementary affidavit highlighting certain RTI responses which were made available, and that the amendment was made while the model code of conduct was in force because the assembly elections were going on in Himachal and Gujarat. Uh, so the Supreme Court finally said in a very brief hearing to the lawyer that what is the hurry? Now the courts are going into vacations, and we will hear the matter in end January. So let's see whether it will be heard in the end of January 23 or not. We are hoping that it does get heard. The CPIM and the Indian National Congress have also filed petitions in this regard, and probably these will all be bunched together and heard by the Supreme Court as and when it decides to hear them. Now, today, we would like the panelists to dwell over the statements which we had shared in the note when we sent the invitations for the webinar as to how the political funding landscape is changing from being partially transparent to becoming completely opaque. Provide plausible reasons behind this, discuss the ongoing institutional paralysis, lack of political will, and provide recommendations for reforms in the scheme. Amendments to the electoral bond scheme in a scenario where a batch of pleas challenging the legality and merit of the electoral bond scheme is pending before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has not been able to list the matter, like I said, on an urgent basis, especially when numerous applications have been filed in the court to stop the government from not opening any further window for the sale of electoral bonds due to the pendency of a case and to have a level playing field in the elections. And lastly, why is it necessary that a constitution bench to be constituted by the Supreme Court to hear the plea challenging the funding through electoral bonds? Now, keeping the time constraints in mind, I'll request each speaker to restrict themselves to the time limit of 10 to 12 minutes. And at the end of all the speakers, once they have given their presentations, we'll have a short question and answer sessions. People will mail their questions and answer sessions. We'll display them here on the ticker tape, and we'll try to uh, answer these questions. The sequence we'll follow today first will be Dr. Ford, and then followed by Mr. Venkatesh Nayak, then Mr. Professor Niranjan Sahu, then Mr. Sri Ganesh, and lastly Commodore Lokesh Batra. With that, I'll now introduce the first speaker, that is Dr. Ford Halim. He is a senior leader of CPIM. He completed his medical education from NRS Medical College, Kolkata, and he started his private practice in 1996. In 2008, he floated an NGO called Kolkata Swasth Sankalp, which provides dialysis at very subsidized rates to the disadvantaged people. And he's been working hard to raise awareness during the COVID pandemic, wherein he did a remarkable job. His father, late Shri Hashim Abdul Halim, was the Speaker of the West Bengal Assembly, and Dr. Ford also joined politics actively in 1980. During 2011 and 2021, he contested the West Bengal Assembly elections from Baliganj constituency. And in 2019, he also contested the Lok Sabha seat from Diamond Harbour constituency. So, with that short introduction, I will now request Dr. Fawad Halim to kindly give his views. Over to you, Dr. Fawad.
Thank you, and good evening and good morning to the speakers who are spread over the country and internationally too, and all the viewers that are there on this channel. My gratitude to the association for inviting me to put my party's view on board. So, preliminary comments would be that my party has not accepted any sort of electoral bonds as funding for running the party or any election campaign, number one. And number two, as mentioned by the in the introduction, that we have also filed a petition in the Supreme Court to review this entire process. Our concerns are at various levels, and primarily we are concerned at the judicial evasion, the way the judiciary is trying to avoid, trying to what we call delay its hearings, and we believe that given the entire context of what we are going to discuss, that itself is a cause of serious concern for us in our party, that's the CPIM. As far as the content of what we are going to discuss today, I think so all of us are aware, but broadly on three heads, I'd like to put it forward. Number one is that the changes that have been brought about in 2017 are actually trying to influence the party that is in power in a way that will be out of public scrutiny. And I think so that's the most unfortunate part, and the part that needs to be actually dealt with head on. We've got changes that have been brought about in the FCRA, we've got changes that have been brought about in the RBI, we've got changes that have been brought about in the IT Act, and the process in which these changes have been brought about, that is also a cause of concern. But primarily, the argument that is being put forward by the government, or let's put it, the power that is in government today, there's the Bharatiya Janata Party. using the language of the government, is that this is going to increase transparency, is going to root out black money. And we know that's a failed argument, because the demonetization process did nothing to remove black money from our system, even though it was an argument at that point of time. So this argument being put forward today is something that is not going to match the reality, because black money and behind the door what you call funding of political parties are going to continue. But what this what you call conduit allows, and that it allows for companies to actually directly deal with political parties out of the ambit of public scrutiny, to close deals in a way that is favorable for them. Now, that is absolutely what you call fulfilled by the way they, there is no way that the public will know about it, but the party that is receiving the donation will be in the know of it. The party that will be giving the donation will be in the know of it. The election commission will not be in the know of it, and that's the most what you call untransparent part of it, is that people who are supposed to be represented by political parties, people who are being told that their interests are going to be protected by the political party or the public face of that political party, will not know where the funding is coming from, and another level of decision making will creep into our political system in a continuation of the way that these decisions are taken. The second point of concern is that if we go into the material reality of the acts that have been modified, and that is we've been a rather insulated political system where foreign companies have not been allowed direct penetration into the political system through the funding route. But that seems to be de-insulated through these acts, and in its a roundabout fashion. But the details are there on the table. I think so everybody is aware. I'm just mentioning it for in a very what you call limited fashion, that the way the Companies Act has been what you call altered, foreign companies that have Indian subsidiaries will now be allowed to make donations, which was previously not there. The FCRA Act is also being amended and has been amended, and that also allows a backdoor conduit for foreign companies to come in and fund political parties on Indian soil. So that's a great departure from what we had as a political funding system previously. The second part is that there was a cap previously of 7.5% of the average profits of the previous 3 years, which were allowed as a political donation. But that cap has been removed. And surprisingly, companies that are making losses will also be allowed to make donations to political parties. Now that immediately sets off alarm bells as to why would a company be allowed by the government of India through law, even though it's making losses, to make donations. So these alarm bells are already ringing out there. The other point that one has to keep in mind is that the way the act was instituted, it came in through the route of the money bill. And we do know that the government is not spending any money on the implementation of this act. This is a donation by corporates, by high net worth individuals who will give money to political parties. The government has no role in it, but yet the government of the day in 2017 used the money bill route to actually implement these amendments and changes, and that itself took the Rajya Sabha out of the ambit of scrutinizing this bill. Now that by its very what you call process seems to be a birth defect in this bill, and the reason why that birth defect was instituted gives you a clear idea as was the intention of the government of the day. We are politically very conscious about this fact, and we have approached the Supreme Court. We have submitted an affidavit in that regard as a petition, and the Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier, does not seem to be giving the deserved attention that a matter of such grave importance needs to be given. Government decision making, whether it be at the level of giving contracts to certain companies, are going to be influenced by the way money is going to be routed to political parties, especially political parties that are in power. Secondly, the political party that is in power will have the knowledge and wherewithal as to which company, which corporate, which high net individual is donating to which political organization, even though the accounts of the company or the accounts of the political party receiving the electoral bonds does not mention by name, but because it's being routed through a system, especially the nationalized banks, sources of information as to who is giving what, who is purchasing how much, will always be there with the political party that's in power. So even though it's supposed to be absolutely anonymous, there is one set of people who will know as to where the money is coming from and where the money is going to. Now, that small set of people vis-a-vis the larger interests of the citizens of this country, that is the question that is important, that needs to be addressed. I believe that this webinar will be addressing that. It is unfortunate that the other political parties who are part of the system, very few of them are giving a serious thought to this question, and our institutions are also not giving a serious thought to this question. It is also important to point out that the Election Commission, in its rejoinder to the Supreme Court on these questions, have also raised concerns. They have also mentioned that the People's Representation Act, in their own way, they have pointed out, may be compromised by the way the entire electoral bond system is being implemented here in India. And I think so. That's an important what you call observation on behalf of the Election Commission of India. But it is not very, very what you call favorable in the larger context as to how the electoral bond system needs to be what you call in its present form needs to be actually opposed. And the people of India, the knowledge that how political parties who run the country, where the funding is coming from, that knowledge should be given to them. Thank you. These are my opening comments.
Uh, Thank you very much, Dr. Fogg. You have quite comprehensively covered the complete scheme and what the status of the thing is. Uh, you, in passing, mentioned that the government is not spending any money on the electoral bonds. Maybe when Commodore Lokesh Batra speaks about it, he'll tell you the details. Because after all, taxpayers' money is being spent on electoral bonds, whether it is for printing or whether it is, in some other fashion. Uh, Otherwise, I would also like to say that gradually over the years, as you have pointed out, more and more political parties are joining the bandwagon and accepting money through electoral bonds. As of now, the last report which we have published, uh, 19 political parties have declared that they have received funding through electoral bonds. There may be others who have not declared because there are some parties which do not give the complete details to the Election Commission, and our reports are based on only the data which is available on the Election Commission's website. Okay, so thank you very much, and later on we'll come to you if there are any questions. I'll now move to the next speaker and give a brief introduction of Mr. Venkatesh Nayak. He is the director of CHRI. He is a key public training resource on RTI across South Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean region. He has trained over 6,000 government officers and more than 600 executives of the public sector enterprise on the RTI. He has authored research and publication educational documents on RTI, basic structure of the Indian Constitution, issues of social justice, electoral reforms, efficacy of public audit and mechanisms, and fact-finding missions on human rights violations. He writes very frequently, and he's a very, I would say, motivated activist. So, with that brief introduction, I'll now request Venkatesh to kindly give his views.
Thank you,
Over
Dr.
to you.
Sharma. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yeah, a little louder. Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah, better.
when I was younger, much younger than I am today, um, thanks to my father, I started watching James Bond movies. So in the 70s, the reigning character, James Bond, was played by well-known thespian Roger Moore. I really fell in love with that character. And later on, I heard that there was somebody called Sean Connery also. So I watched Sean Connery's movies. Was never terribly impressed, but I love Sean Connery's movies where he doesn't play James Bond. But both actors I really liked very much. Subsequent people who played James Bond characters were okay. Maybe even Daniel Craig, and my brother says Daniel Craig comes closest to the manner in which James Bond, the fictional character, is portrayed by Ian Fleming in his movies. But until 2017, then the other Bond that I really liked was the Fevicol Bond, because fantastic adhesive. But until 2017, never in my life did I dream that I would actually come to be very critical of the term bond itself, and that is electoral bonds. I have uh, reasons for being critical about electoral bonds. A lot of that Dr. Halim has already explained, so I don't need to cover that ground again. I have an additional reason to be very sad about electoral bonds. And the reason being that in my RTI interventions, which are not as prolific as that of Commodore Batra, who will speak later on, I have not been successful with regard to electoral bonds. I will start with that point and perhaps I will end with that point in terms of what is it that we as citizens could do to oppose this system of electoral bonds as the primary mode of political financing. The reason why initially when I received this invitation, I was quite hesitant to accept it because I had practically no story to tell. All my interventions with regard to electoral bonds, seeking information about them, with the exception of sale data on one occasion, they have all failed. There is a very high degree of resistance to reveal any information about electoral bonds, even though I will say that there is zero justification that is saleable to the ordinary citizen for such secrecy. Now, please mark my words, zero justification that is saleable to ordinary citizens. There are justifications which are eminently saleable and they will be lapped up within moments by the corporate sector. And that will be my second point on which I will focus in my presentation. There are enough justifications for them, but there's very little for ordinary citizens, because we would like to know what is it that political parties that claim to represent us in the public sphere, on the roads, in parliament, in legislatures, when they say that we will accept a certain kind of funding which is non-transparent, then we as citizens will have problems with it. There might be others who might think differently, but we can debate that later on. But let me now present what is essentially an advocacy point of view based on some research. Now I'll request the organizers to please start my sharing the PowerPoint presentation that I had sent to them. So let's just be on the title slide, because I would like to first make a couple of acknowledgements. Now, any research of this kind cannot but be beholden to two sources of information. The first, of course, is the Election Commission of India, their website. Even though the information that they display about political parties is not generated by them, the audit reports, the contribution reports, and the various other reports that are statutorily required to be submitted to the Election Commission of India, of course, come from political parties. But we need to be appreciative of the actions of the Election Commission of India, because nothing in the Representation of People's Acts, there are two of them, or the Conduct of Election Rules of 1961 require them to make this information public. But it has become a matter of practice, and that's how citizens like you and I get to know what is the condition of the finances of political parties. Okay, the screen is in front of you. Before I go on to the material slides, I would like to thank two of my former colleagues. One is Tanish Arora, who's a student of National Law University, Odisha, who started off the data collection on the basis of which I'll be able to present some of my findings. The other is my former colleague Purnima Gusai, who cross-checked the data and then added to it wherever there were gaps. But all the data that I have, like I said, first, it comes from the Election Commission. The second, of course, is the same data which is processed, analyzed, and researched in a thorough manner by the Association for Democratic Reforms. I have drawn from there as well. So, big thank you to them, because if they don't do that kind of analysis, I do not see anybody else in the country, including media houses, doing this year after year after year to put a picture in front of people as to what do the finances of political parties look like. And the third, of course, the source of information is our veteran RTI activist, Commodore Lokesh Batra, who was kind enough to share the electoral bonds sales data right from the beginning till the end. I didn't follow up on the sales data for too long, but he did. And therefore, I have used the data that he has put out in the public domain for my analysis. Now let's go to the second slide. I will make one statement here and add an exception to that. The first statement is this. What I'm trying to present before you on the next slide, can you please go to the second slide? What I'm trying to say here is that the topic of today's presentation, panel discussion, which is electoral bonds and the political landscape, we need to look a little farther than that. And that is, electoral bonds are only a mechanism for making donations. On their own, of course, they have problems, but on their own, they are value neutral. It is just a set of rules and procedures that the government has come up with. You can't blame the rules and procedures for doing something wrong. They have no life. We need to question people who brought in those rules and regulations. And frankly speaking, rules and regulations are not even the correct term to describe the electoral bond scheme. The statutory basis for electoral bonds does not require secrecy anywhere. The electoral bond scheme that was floated in 2018, that scheme is what brings in secrecy. And that is what is usually problematic. But today, I am not going to dwell on that too much because other speakers are going to talk about it. I am going to talk about that first assumption, that first point that I would like to highlight, which is looks beyond electoral bonds, and that is the corporatization of political party financing. And that is a matter of big concern for us. Why do I say that? I will explain that in the next slide. The slide doesn't seem to be moving on my screen. Can you please go to the second one? Otherwise, I won't be able to say much. I'll have to then look at my computer and share this, and then talk from it. Can we please move to the next slide? Okay, so by the time they change the slide, let me continue the presentation. I don't want to hold back on it. I'm sorry, you will not be able to see it on screen until they share it, but I will speak from my screen here, which unfortunately you can't see. In 2015-16, macro level, what we find, all of this is again based on the data whose sources I've already explained. We were able to access the audit reports that are submitted every year to the Election Commission by political parties. That is national political parties and recognized state political parties. And that's a small figure. There are about 49 of them. The number of political parties is much larger. They run into more than 1,600, I think. So when we looked at these 49 parties audit reports, we saw that they had declared total receipts. यानी एक साल में कितने पैसे उनके पास उनके खाते में आए from various sources. It was about 1,361.25 crores. Out of that, when we calculated the total contributions that they had declared, there were about 43 parties which had declared. The total amount, all those parties combined, was about 714.21 crores. Out of that, 17 political parties gave some details about their corporate donations. And that ran into about 75.87 crores. Electoral trusts also contributed to some of these political parties. There were 5 of them. And that accounted to about 49.51 crores. Okay, and this 75 and 49 are part of the total contributions declared, which is 740. Okay, there. The screen is up in front of you. Thank you so much. So if you look at this, the total contributions that political parties are declaring as part of the total receipts that they got. Everything is not contribution that comes in as income to political parties. So that the contributions constitute about 52.46%. Yani about 47% of it is from non-contribution related sources. Corporate donations at that point of time amounted to 10% of the total contributions. Electoral trusts gave about 6.93%. Electoral bonds had not yet come into existence. So what we see based on the deduction is 83.07% of contributions that political parties received were from non-corporate sources. This is important to remember. Now, we haven't looked at data prior to 2015-16. So if there is a different trend that is visible there, I am willing to stand corrected as far as my assertions here about corporatization is concerned. But this is what we are finding 2015 onwards. Can we go to the next slide, please? 2016 to 17. 49 political parties have declared their audit reports. They are available on the ECI website. Total receipts amount to 1,918 crores. Total contributions declared are from 45 political parties, 1,330. Corporate donations, 16 political parties have given details. That comes to about 568 crores. Electoral trusts have given money to 11 parties, 321 crores. Electoral bonds have not yet come into place. So what are we seeing here? 42% of the total contributions received by political parties are from corporate donations. You include a remaining 24.17% to it, because high net worth individuals or other wealthy entities give money to electoral trusts, large sums in lakhs together or sometimes even crores, and that goes to the concerned political party of their choice, which the donor has indicated. So you will see that a lot of money, almost 65% of total contributions that political parties received in 2016-17 have come from corporate sector. Next slide, please. Contribution from other sources down to about 33.08%. Next slide. In 17-18, the contributions declared by political parties, 47 of them, amounts to about 70.5% of the total receipts that they've declared. Corporate donations now have come down slightly. Why? Because this is the year when electoral bonds have been floated. So 23 political parties say that that they've got 425 crores. So that is about 36% of the total contributions that all political parties declared. Only 3 parties declared electoral trust contributions, and that's about 185 crores. And electoral bond sale was 210 crores, about 18.21%. So now in 2015-16, if you remember, corporates contribution to political parties kitty was 17% of the total universe of donations that came from all sources. In 2016-17, it goes up to 65%. In 2017-18, it goes to 71.2%. Now, I will come to the redemption related data a little later. First, let me explain this point and then I'll come to it. Next slide, please. In 18-19, what does the picture look like? Yeah. Contributions from various sources are now amounting to 83.67% of the receipts declared by political parties. Corporate donations have gone down again, 22.31%. Electoral contributions reduced further, but what is again picking up slowly is electoral bonds. About 2,550 crores worth of electoral bonds were sold and 2,539 crores were redeemed. What happens to the balance amount? I will not get into that because that's not the subject of my presentation. One of the speakers will explain to you what happens to electoral bonds that are not redeemed by political parties. We'll not get into that. So in this particular year, the contribution from other sources, that is non-corporates, is about 56.18%. It is slightly higher. But let's go further. Next slide. Let's see what happens in the next year, 2019-20. Again, contributions as a share of the total receipts of political parties is quite high, 86%. Now you will see that corporate donations directly in a transparent manner, indicating the check number, bank branch, and their PAN number, etc., it's come down to 8.70%. Electoral trust contributions have also come down to 7.18%, but electoral bonds as a source of contributions has gone up to almost 70%. You can see how the system of political financing is increasingly favoring non-transparent methods of making donations to political parties. Let's go to the next slide. 2021. That is the only year that I have analyzed. Where again, this information I do not think is complete because the figures are very low, but nevertheless the trends remain quite similar. Corporate donations are in the range of 26% of total contributions. Electoral trusts, their contribution has further come down to less than 6%. Electoral bonds, which are declared, it's about 26.15%. Now, let's go back to the to the slide of 2017-18. If you can just go back one, please stop here. Now I come to the second point. The non-transparency part is not just for citizens. It's also about how information about contributions received to electoral bonds is declared. Now we know that 220 crores worth of electoral bonds were sold in this particular year. Accounting for electoral bonds in the audit reports of political parties is only up to 210 crores. So which are the political parties that got the remaining 10 crores? We don't know. Incidentally, in the first year of sale, all electoral bonds, entire worth was redeemed by political parties. Let's go to the next one. 2018-19, let's look at that data in terms of how much is being reported. You will see here, the total sale was 2,550 crores. Redemption is 2,539 crores. But you get an accounting in the reports of political parties of only 12 in their audit reports, and that is 268.84 crores only. So 10% is accounted for. We, at least as far as the contribution and the audit reports of political parties is concerned, the remaining almost 89% of the electoral bonds, there is no publicly available data. Now let's go to the next one, 1920. This is a slightly different year. Now here we have a phenomenal amount of sale of political parties because it's an election year. About 3,409 crores of electoral bonds are actually accounted for. So about 90% of the sales data is actually accounted for in the audit reports of political parties. Let's go to the next slide, 2020-21. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Now here you see again the accountability is coming down. So for this particular year, only 7 political parties have declared that they got electoral bonds, even though the sales was in the range of 2,673 crores. Almost everything was redeemed except for a small amount, some lakhs only. There is an accounting available in the audit report of political parties only to the extent of 319 crores. So almost 89% of 88% of electoral bonds sold, the data is not actually accounted for. Okay, let's close the presentation. Thank you very much. Now let me come to the next point. Now when I say political parties, some distinction has to be maintained. Number one, as quite rightly pointed out by comrade Dr. Halim, CPI and CPM do not accept electoral bonds. It's not just their statement. Don't take it at face value. It is borne out by the data that they have submitted to the Election Commission of India. They have not accepted funding through electoral bonds. Evidence is there. The other political parties, I pointed out how many, I'm not naming any specific political party. The details of which political party has reported how much in terms of electoral bonds, some of that data is available in the ADR reports. I'll not, get into that. But the worrisome factor is this, that the electoral bonds scheme is designed in such a manner where even regulatory authority like the Election Commission of India does not have access to the data at the end of the year. The amendments made to the Companies Act, Dr. Halim has already explained. There is no requirement of mentioning this in the annual report. So what is the big deal of mentioning the annual report? The annual report of corporate entities is public information. Until the amendment to the Companies Act was made in 2017, operationalized in 2018, you could actually see in the annual reports of corporate entities which company was giving how much money to which political party. Today, you no longer have that right. A company may actually open a set of shareholders may open a company today, get it registered, and tomorrow, under the law, they are permitted to even make over their entire share capital to a political party of their choice. Now, even there is a funny part as far as the electoral bond scheme is concerned. You might be a buyer of electoral bonds. Let us say you bought about 10 crores as a company. You gave it to your chauffeur and said, go and give this to a certain political party. And you trusted your chauffeur. Political party A ko jaake de ke aiye. Now, the political party is not required under the Representation of People Act to keep an account of who gave them how much of electoral bonds. They only have to account to the Election Commission how much did they actually receive in the form of donations. Some political parties say we got this much electoral bonds. Like I've shown, many of them don't even mention that. So if the chauffeur goes and gives the electoral bond to political party B, the donor is not any wiser unless The bank alerts them, and the bank will have no way. And in fact, they are also very secretive. They claim fiduciary relationship and all of that, where they refuse to give redemption and sales data in terms of the identity of people who bought the electoral bonds and who redeemed the electoral bonds. Now, this is the difficult situation in which we find ourselves where, and now I link the lack of transparency with the idea of corporatization of political financing. It is actually robbing us as citizens, voters, agency. What do I mean by that? It is robbing us of our influence on political parties. And when I say political parties, I'm talking about the big ones which are receiving electoral funding. There may be a number of political parties, including the Communist Party, which is represented here, which might be very closely in touch with the people who support them. But I'm not so sure about the larger political parties. When I say in touch with them, in terms of public policies, in terms of governmental action, they might be in touch with them as far as voting behavior is concerned, or they might be in touch with them saying, please come to our leader who's addressing this particular political rally. We will take you in a truck and bring you back in a truck and give you a packed meal in the afternoon. Those things are there. But to what extent are citizens able to influence the agenda of the political parties when they are not the primary donors of contributions, and corporates are the private donor, are the primary donors? That is a major blow to participatory democracy. And that is why I say corporatization of political financing is a serious concern. Now I come to the last point that I want to make, which is what is it that we can do? Increasingly, as Major General Anil Verma said, increasing number of political parties are accepting electoral bonds through as a means of accepting donations. Obviously, if we don't want to give, we simply don't give, and political parties are not hurt in any way. One way of pressurizing greater transparency is if we started asking formally the State Bank of India, the various branches through which these electoral bonds are sold, once there is a periodicity when the sales are there in a non-election year, and an additional period is given during the election year. Commodore Batra will talk about that. We need to file information requests formally in hundreds, in thousands. That is what will build pressure for the banks and through them on the government to become more transparent. Otherwise, we will just be restricted to these kinds of webinars and discussions. One person like me or another person like Commodore Lokesh Batra, despite the perseverance that he is capable of, will not help improve the system, especially when the government is in favor of it. Legislature does not want to say anything about it because their parent political party, the representatives, parent political parties, many of them are beneficiaries of this system. And judiciary is delaying matters. Less said the better about the Central Information Commission. So therefore, it will happen only if pressure comes from people. And at least some segments of the media are going to highlight how people are demanding greater transparency in the electoral bonds mechanism of political party funding. The idea is to frustrate the main objective of electoral bonds scheme, which is opacity. Let the scheme be there, no problem. But everything about the scheme, everything that is made in terms of donations in the scheme, who is making the donations, who are the beneficial owners of companies that are making donations using electoral bonds, and excuse me, who are the beneficiaries who are redeeming the money. All of that information should be in the public domain. You keep the electoral bond scheme, no problem. कैश में दे रहे हैं, डीडी में दे रहे हैं, बैंक ट्रांसफर में दे रहे हैं, इलेक्ट्रल बॉन्ड्स में भी दे दो, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. बट बता दो कौन कितना पैसा दे रहा है, किसको दे रहा है, या कौन कितने पैसा दे रही है या किसको दे रही है, इतना बताइए. Let the electoral bonds continue, no problem. Transparency is a requirement. So we don't hate electoral bonds. At least I don't hate bonds because it is electoral bonds. I only dislike the lack of transparency, and because that is very hurtful as far as our democracy is concerned, our electoral processes are concerned. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Venkatesh. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. You nicely brought out the analysis year-wise as to how the corporation donations to the corporate, which was earlier on transparent, as also the donations to the electoral trusts, how that figure is going down after the introduction of the electoral bond schemes, wherein it has slowly become the favorite mode of accepting funds from the donors. I only had one point related to the corporate donations analysis which you've done. How much? But it is still quite evident, I think, that from the sale proceeds which we know of when we file RTIs with the SBI, that most of the sales of electoral bonds are in the denomination of 1 crore. So obviously, that is the corporates. You and me can't buy that type of electoral bond. So it is still quite clear that 90% of the funding, I think, is coming from the corporates, but through the electoral bond mode. So the only thing is now there's no transparency. And by the way, in RPIL, we have very clearly said that we also have no fight with the electoral bond scheme. We only want to know who the donors are. Not we, I mean the public should know. So that is, we agree with you there. Okay, with that, now I'll move to the next speaker, and I'll quickly give a very brief introduction. Professor Niranjan Sahu. He is a senior fellow at the ORF and he he specializes in the field of governance and political initiatives. He is academic advisor for Center of Overseas and Rural Studies, Central China Normal University at Wuhan. He has expertise in governance and public policy, and now authors studies and programs on democracy, human rights, federalism, electoral reforms, especially political funding. And he is the recipient of Asia Fellowship 2019 and a former Sir Ratan Tata Fellow. He's authored two books. First one, Politics of Power Sector Reforms in 2007, and the second one in 2009, Reservation Policy and its Implementation Across Domains in India. With that, I'll request Professor Niranjan Sahu to kindly share his views. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Major Burma, for the invitation and initiating this very timely discussion. And my co-panelist, I feel so happy to see Venkatesh and Commander Batra, who has been, both of them are fighting, with RTI petition and, been pioneer in their own ways. And I basically would like to bring one major dimension about this, what Venkatesh said about corporatization of political finance. It's growing. The manner in which it's growing actually is worrisome. Because it has a lot of implication for the electoral politics and democracy overall. When we talk about equality of, you know, political rights, in which that each citizen should have kind of equalizing influence in the system. Otherwise, democratic system will be captured by the oligarchs, the power brokers and the business. That's always a worrisome kind of a trend, and for which democracy across the world have taken many kind of regulation and all institutional measures to check corporate donation sort of influence into politics. So in India, unfortunately, I would say that since the introduction of electoral bonds, it is actually going in an unchecked manner, and with all kind of removal of some of the limits and whatever institutional restrictions we had. I think that it is now, it's almost uncontrolled flow of corporate money into the political system, and that's a really serious development. So I will not get into the details of electoral bond scheme and other nitty-gritties, but I'll try to theorize how this particular development since last few years with especially with the introduction of electoral bonds is gaming the political system and democracy in India, and what implication it will have for the country in future. Uh, uh, can can my PPT be run? Nandini? Yeah,
Yes, we are displaying it. It is just taking some time
yeah,
to
yeah.
load. Just give
Sure,
us
sure.
some
No problem.
seconds. Thank you.
So political finance, as I said, in India, uh, last 6 7 years, uh, the asymmetry of is quite high actually. In fact, between if you look at the major parties like the Congress and BJP, like 2013 we had almost they were almost on a similar range, and in fact BJP was not in power, but it was still uh, gathering more donations in around 2013. But that has now actually gone, that disparities has gone actually to a level which looks impossible to breeze in even decades. Almost like BJP captures almost like 80% of the donation, and Congress just about 15 to 16% of total donations. So that's the kind of asymmetry we have witnessed in last 6 7 years. And one of the key reasons for that sort of asymmetry in political finances of major parties, especially Congress and BJP's, I think major reason is the corporate donations, which is favoring the ruling dispensation, and then of course the new game in the town, that is electoral bonds. Uh, if you have problem, I think I can run from my side, maybe.
We are loading it. Just give us
Okay,
a
okay,
few
okay.
seconds. Thank you. Yeah,
Sure,
Divya
sure.
is loading it. Thank you.
So Uh, I would like to, before the PowerPoint comes, I would like to basically draw attention to there have been a lot of actually empirical literature available on the party finance, the political funding. Political funding is something which, like number of democracies have taken very seriously, because if there is a funding gaps between different parties, as the previous speaker said, and also uh, the my colleague from the CPIM said that level playing field, that actually is something very critical in democracy. Unless you actually open up the level playing field and allow smaller, newer, or even medium range parties to efficiently advertise themselves and do their political communication for convincing the voters, their chances of getting elected is very bleak. That's largely because you know uh, elections and electoral sort of maintaining a political party, running its affairs, other thing requires a lot of money. Without money in a democracy, you stand no chance actually to win elections. There might be once in a while, you might have a phenomena like Arvind Kejriwal, who can come from a anti-corruption sort of campaign and win a election in a city like Delhi. But running a political party, running supporting thousands of party workers and staff, and arranging this thing, the leaders, and their sort of travel and many other expenditures, you need a lot of money. And that's where actually political donation plays a major role. So unfortunately, yeah, please go to the second slide straight away. Yeah, yeah. So here you can easily see how actually uh, political party finance are crucial for democratic systems. Empirically, it is established, very well established, that uh, for a political party to win elections, it needs a minimum floor level of kind of finances, and without that, it chances are very bleak. and as a result, we have actually seen philosopher like the famous political philosopher like John Rawls, Robert Dahl, and Ronald Darwin. They have actually advocated for preserving equal political influence, and preserving equal influence is very important, because otherwise wealthy kind of candidates and party which has greater access to political finances will outbid the opponent, and other parties stand very little chance to win elections. And that's the reason why equalizing political influence is very, very fundamental to a democratic system. And that's where people like John Rawls have been advocating very strongly. They have advocated for public funding of elections, that state should fund elections, and so that that gap can be bridged, and those who are especially to create a level playing field for many. This is very, very important instrument. And as a result, today we have across the world, if you see, there are 113 countries that have actually either full or partial kind of state funding of elections. State funding means I would say rather public funding of elections. So in a sense, this is very crucial. Yeah, please go to the second day. Yeah, this is fine. Then next slide. Yeah. Now you look at Indian scene actually. When I just theorize why equality in political finance is very crucial for democracy, and across the world, countries have taken measures to regulate corporate influence in the election process, and especially the donation, and they have put a lot of cap and all kind of stringent measures. Even many countries have removed, completely banned corporate donations, because they can influence the electoral outcomes by supporting certain parties. But in India, with especially electoral bonds, things have completely changed. And now I'll just show you actually the asymmetry in political party finances in India, which my previous speaker also highlighted. And that's largely happening because of growing corporatization of finances, party finances. So if you look at which I was just hinting, 2013 and 14. This is the time where actually this growing gap actually started in the political finances. While Congress and BJP, they were at same level in 2013 and 14, this gap is now massively in favor of BJP. If you can you just go to the next slide actually? Yeah, next slide. Can you move? Yeah. So you just look at the year, 2013 and 14, you can see almost Congress, BJP, they were at the same level. Now you look at the Congress is blue and BJP is the saffron, and you can see that gap actually how it has gone, especially since the time BJP came into power actually. Next slide, which can actually show more vividly. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So you look at 2000, that 2014 election year. So Congress BJP had almost bridged the gap actually, but after that you just see the gap. Congress is the down way and BJP is the up way. You can easily see how that gap has actually grown. So that disparity is now it looks unbridgeable. Can you come back? Yeah, come back to the yeah, one more. Yeah. So BJP now collects more donation than combined funds of six national parties. All six national party put together, they actually BJP collects more donation than them. This was never the scene before 2014. And between Congress and BJP, the gap is almost like 5 times. And that is something to worry about, because Congress is still a national party and has also major presence in many states actually. Next slide, please. Yeah. Again, skip this. Yeah, skip this. You can look at the corporate donation between the parties, especially Congress, BJP. This is a comparison, and BJP captures almost like 90% of corporate donations. And you look at the Congress, BJP. This is 2020 figures, so you can easily just a small indications. Next slide, please. I'll come back to this. Next. Next. Yeah, next. Yeah. So now get back to the main issue. Why this disparities? As I said earlier, the major reason for this huge gap in donation is the corporate donation, which Mr. Venkatesh actually mentioned very clearly, and he has with the data he clearly showed. But I wanted to show it between BJP and Congress. You look at two major parties, and 2013-14 they were at the same level. But look at 17 and 19 figures of corporate donations. 92% of corporate donations goes to BJP, and Congress just gets only 19 crores, while BJP gets 400 crores. These are all ADR data. And then one of the major also development over the years, and this trend is basically last 4-5 years trend. Before that, electoral trust used to balance between Congress and BJP, but now if you look at electoral trust, which is one of the major corporate donation instrument, BJP receives 351 crore recently released data by ADR. You can see 72% of total donation goes to BJP alone, and Congress received just about 18 crores actually, out of total 487 crores. So you easily see the gap between two national parties. And major reason, I think, one cannot actually blame BJP for this. BJP is probably well positioned and well geared in terms of donation, and it uses every sort of level of its sort of national presence, and being in government in several states, all that also comes to its help. But obviously BJP is in a pole position, and Congress is nowhere in the sort of scene in terms of political donations. And then of course ruling parties has its own traditional proximity with the business groups, that also allows it to sort of gather more donations. So that's where actually BJP is way ahead actually of than Congress and rest of the political parties. Next slide, please. Yeah. So beyond this, actually, I wanted to draw your attention to the major reason for this disparities. It's just not because electoral trust or other modes do not for other parties, but problem is basically because of the new instrument called electoral bonds. See, this electoral bond scheme has completely gamed the system in favor of the ruling party, and you can easily see actually that's largely because as previous speakers also mentioned, the schemes, the electoral bond scheme has a mechanism and processes in place which greatly favors the ruling party, because one, it is there is no disclosure, or it's completely opaque, and the State Bank of India, which is private to most of the informations, in any way the ruling party has that advantage to get those information. So that way it would actually put pressure on the donors. So that way one would imagine that most donation comes to BJP. Then the removal of limits, all those FCR law, relaxation and companies act, all that has been diluted, so that you have sort of unchecked kind of corporate donation is happening through this platform, because anonymity is preserved. So a lot of wealthy donors find this is more convenient than to come through electoral trust and other means actually, because their names won't be revealed in the public. So this is why you can see in just 4 years time, since 2018, and by 2022, including the last donation flow, if you see, more than 11,000 crores has actually come through this route only. And just compare that with the other sources of donation, including other like local trust and many other sources of donations. So I was just comparing a figure, 2017 to 2021, 16 total donation received by the party, all above 20,000 above sum. was 16,000 odd crore actually in those 5 years. But from electoral bonds, 2018 to 21 alone, 10,246 crores have come. So you can easily see that almost 75% of now donations are actually flowing through electoral bonds. And this is being ruling party having that advantage. It actually corners most of the way. Can you actually go back to the fewer previous slides? I can show the electoral bonds, how that is. Yeah, this is, so you can easily see the electoral donation flow. This is the this is where actually maximum donation is now flowing over the years, last few years. Next slide, please. And you can easily see the comparison of political party. That yellow color is BJP, and Congress is blue. You can easily see the year wise. I think you can't actually see, but I can say since 2018, if you see continuously, it is BJP which is actually capturing more than 75% of electoral bonds. Whatever information known in the public through RTA applications, BJP is capturing more than 75% of the electoral bonds. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can easily see BJP's year-wise kind of average is 75% per years. And next slide, please. Yeah, next one more slide. Yeah, one more, last slide. Yeah, so this is the last slide, and I wanted to also basically flag a few implications of this sort of development, that the growing disparities in party finances. It is clearly showing that it is as I said earlier, that parties that have greater access to money, those sort of donations from the rich donors, they will have a disproportionate advantage in terms of mounting effective political communication and narrative buildings, which other parties would actually struggle. So that is where BJP is actually in a pole position in all sort of electoral campaign or narrative buildings, or deploying thousands of people in sort of creating kind of buzz. And it reduces, especially it prevents opposition parties to put up a decent campaign, which is happening. Congress, if you see the campaign, it quite often it struggles because it doesn't have resources. Then most worrisome trend is that it brings also interested money, oligarchs, as I said, into the electoral system. And that's the reason why most of the advanced democracy, you look at Japan, you look at Germany, you look at dozens of countries in Europe have put complete ban on corporate donations, is largely because to prevent interested money to flow into the system and distort the democratic system. That rule of oligarch is the biggest sort of threat for any democracy. And then the problem also it will bring is that it also, because lack of money and resources for many political parties, because it is captured by just few political parties, is that it will weaken the party organization, because parties will have less ability to not only launch a proper effective election campaign, to also maintain the party, to support the workers activities. And that's what exactly happening with the Congress and few other political parties. And then finally it will also encourage wealthy and self-financed candidates, the crorepati candidates, which has become a trend over the years. Is largely because many political parties do not have the resources, so they encourage those who have money, other things, come and compete. And that actually deprives a lot of meritorious candidates, and those candidates with who otherwise bring new ideas, sort of new buzz into the system, they would be deprived actually. So this is where I'll stop. So these are actually worrisome trends, and one of the main major reasons for these trends is the way electoral bond scheme has been gamed. Thank you.
So, am I audible? Okay. Thank you for your insightful analysis and your comments. I just wanted to highlight another factor which you already mentioned, that as per our latest report, the what you were saying, the looming disparity between BJP and the other parties, especially Congress. In the last 4 years, BJP has received donations from electoral bonds worth 4,216 crores, whereas Congress has got only 706 crores. So it is not 5 times, it is actually 6 times the amount which Congress has received. This is the latest figure which we've just worked out. Okay, we are running a little behind schedule, so I will quickly move on to the next speaker. Uh, I'll now request Mr. Shri Ganesh Jalihal. He is the assistant editor of the Reporters Collective. He reports and writes on issues of governance and economy. He has extensively used RTI to find stories. He's a former TEDx licensee from 2016 to 18. He graduated from the Delhi Institute of Mass Communication with a diploma in English journalism. And earlier he was working with Business Standard. So welcome, Mr. Shri Ganesh Jalihal. Over to you now.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege for me to be a part of this panel. When we talk of the electoral funding landscape in India, I think it is important to look at what the Law Commission had to say about political funding in its March 2015 report on electoral reforms. It lays out very clearly why political funding is an issue of utmost importance in our democracy. It says in its report, it is an undeniable fact that financial superiority translates into electoral advantage. And so richer parties have a greater chance of winning elections. It then goes on to say money, often from illegitimate sources, results in undisguised bullying. Further, the Election Commission of India, in its guidelines issued on 29th August 2014, said concerns have been expressed in various quarters that money power is disturbing the level playing field and vitiating the purity of elections. Now, of course, these statements came in the pre-electoral bond era. But with this as context, it is pertinent to see how electoral bonds fare in terms of leveling the playing field. The most telling indication of this, I think, would be to see how different political parties responded to the scheme when it was launched. On 2nd May 2017, the former finance minister, Mr. Jaitley, wrote to India's opposition parties, in fact, all parties, and asking them for suggestions on how to improve and implement the electoral bond scheme. Several wrote back. The opposition parties were concerned. The principal opposition party, for example, Congress, said transparency implies that the electorate must know one, who is the donor, two, which is the donee political party, and three, what is the amount donated. The Communist Party of India, on the other hand, said we are opposing the secretive political bond scheme and amendments to the Corporate Act on political funding. Even the then BJP ally, Shiromani Akali Dal, had suggestions that ran contrary to the BJP's and eventually the center's line. Its suggestions were completely ignored. There was only one party that was all praise for the scheme. It was the Bharatiya Janata Party, which itself had brought in the scheme. The BJP in its feedback found the scheme path-breaking and a way to cleanse the political system. The first tranche of electoral bond sale, held 7 months after the BJP sent its glowing review to the finance ministry, saw the BJP cornering 95% of all funds donated through bonds. Meanwhile, petitions by ADR and others continued to be heard sparsely by the apex court. The scheme, however, has gone ahead unabated. Over the 3 financial years we at the Reporters Collective analyzed, the BJP grabbed a whopping 70% of all funds through electoral bonds. The Congress, although second, was a distant dot in the BJP's rearview mirror, raising just 11.3% of all bonds encashed. The scheme has gone on despite serious objections from even the Election Commission. In March 2019, weeks before the general election, the Election Commission of India filed a writ petition calling for a rollback of the electoral bond scheme. The EC had warned the scheme would allow black money to come into election funding and allow foreign firms to influence Indian policies. The Supreme Court on 12 April 2019, instead of putting a hold on the scheme, directed the EC to submit to it details in sealed cover of all parties that had received electoral bonds along with details of funds received. The EC wrote to all political parties registered with it. 105 parties wrote back. These included 7 national parties, 3 state units of national parties, and 20 state parties. The rest of the 75 are unrecognized registered ones, parties which don't have a fixed election symbol but are eligible to contest elections. When the list of 105 political parties first became public, several media houses immediately reported that all 105 parties had received funding through electoral bonds. While this raised questions about legality of most of the parties receiving these funds, it successfully lent credence to BJP's claim that anyone can donate to the party of their choice. The list of unrecognized parties in the EC list included names like Hum or Aap Party, Asli Desi Party, and even a Sabse Badi Party. My colleagues and I began investigating these parties to find out who they actually were. We went to several registered addresses of the parties. We dug out their profiles and details from social media and news clippings. We made incessant calls over 2 months to nearly all of these parties across the country. We were trying our best to track all of these 75 down. The only way to open the Supreme Court's sealed cover without actually stealing it out. It was just 2 of my colleagues and I conducting, as we like to think, a deep fact check. Here's what we found. All of the unrecognized parties and nearly half of the state parties on the EC list had never received even a paisa from electoral bonds. Soon a pattern emerged. These parties were asked by the EC to send seal cover letters even if they did not get any bonds. One of the parties did not even have a bank account at the time of sending its letter to the EC. The head of another party laughed at us when we asked if his party receives electoral bonds, as reported by news outlets. His party's bank account had a total of rupees 700 in it. This sealed cover letters remain in cold storage with the Supreme Court even 2 years after they were submitted to it by the EC. The farcical sealed cover of 105 parties with the Supreme Court holds nothing that could not have been found out by the court ordering the State Bank of India to tell any day. It has not heard the case for over 2 years and the money keeps rolling in for some, particularly for the BJP. Keeping with the trend of high opacity, State Bank of India, the only bank authorized to issue and encash the bonds, has only revealed how many parties are eligible to receive bonds. It stopped short of naming parties that actually received bonds. As the previous speakers mentioned, it's only when we look at their reports and contributions filed with the Election Commission that we get to know the figures. This shroud of secrecy, even under RTI Act, has been the case with the scheme from the beginning. The little sunlight that earlier has been put on this dark money of electoral bonds is all thanks to RTI activists such as Commodore Batra and Venkatesh Naik. Today, I think of the irony in our reportage. What did we really find? Right? That the scheme was running quite along the lines that the BJP-led government always wanted it to. Secret donors are providing large sums of unaccounted money, largely to the one political party, which can potentially find out who the donations go to. The party in power at the center, which regulates this SBI through this finance ministry. And there's the beauty of it. It is money through banking channels, unaccounted for, anonymized, but through banks and now all legal. As for how this may affect the level playing field, the past record provides multiple examples. Reportage by my colleague Nitin Sethi, based on documents accessed by Commodore Lokesh Batra, showed how the Prime Minister's office directed the Finance Ministry to break its own rules to approve the unscheduled and illegal sale of electoral bonds for state assembly elections on 2 separate occasions. The PMO's intervention to open extra windows for political donations via electoral bonds came despite the fact that the limited sale periods were intended as a precaution against money laundering. We are all aware of the nature of our political economy. Large corporations donate huge amounts to political parties because they expect a return on that investment. The Law Commission report took note of this. The current system tolerates, it said, or at least does not prevent lobbying and capture, where a sort of quid pro quo transpires between big donors and political parties or candidates. Then it quoted renowned academic Lawrence Lessig to say large campaign donations amount to institutional corruption. Here, instead of direct exchange of money or favors, candidates alter their views and convictions in a way that attracts the most funding. This change of perception leads to an erosion of public trust, which in turn affects the quality of democratic engagement. Thank you. That would be all.
Okay. Am I audible? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jalial. You've very secondly brought out your reportage, which you people have been doing a great job. Let me commend you on that. And you highlighted the quid pro quo which is going on, and how the Supreme Court is sort of keeping quiet about it. So let's wait and see what they finally do whenever they have the hearing. Uh, Last but not the least, let me now invite Commodore Batra. uh, Very brief introduction. He is a war veteran of the 1971 war. He served in the Indian Navy with distinction as a hydrographer and held various prestigious appointments. He retired after 36 years of distinguished service in 2002 and decided to become a transparency campaigner. He is one of India's foremost transparency activists and uses RTI to expose corruption and find out the truth and share it with the public. He has authored a book, Outreach, dealing with the voluntary action on community development programs. He was also featured in the Reader's Digest article on extraordinary individuals, Indians in January 2020. Uh, with that, Commodore Batra, over to you, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, let me first thank ADR, and it's been an honor and privilege to be part of the ADR's webinar and have such nice and eminent panelists around me. But I'll quickly go through because time is very less now. I can see that, though I had something. I can only tell you the exact amount, nobody's spoken about it, till November 2020, that means 23 phases, 11,467 crores worth EBs were sold. 11,467, 74 lakh 50,000, sorry, to be exactly. Now, what is shock? Nothing to be shocked about, but that's what's happened. We have bonds sold for 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, and 1 crore denomination. Now, come to this question of the total amount. We have 10,774 bonds of 1 crore value was sold, which makes it 93.9505% of the total sale. And next best was 10 lakh 5.8. That means 10,000 I just mentioned, 10,774 bonds actually in numbers of 1 crore each, that's the amount, and 660, next closest is 666 bond of 10 lakh. Next slide, please. That percentage is there. I mean, is meaning just 1 minute back. Can we go back, Nanni? Just one back. Now I want to make a point here. Well, that is next slide. Sorry, next slide we go. Come, sorry. Next slide, please. Now, I think Shiri talked a lot about the various political parties' comments and all, which were there in the file and in that story. What happened in the one of the leader of the BJP had written to Arun Jaitley, may have smelled the scheme which others did not know, that our grassroots workers like to donate a lot of money, so we need more of 1,000, 10,000. And the government went ahead and printed 2,65,000 each. And see the way they are sold till 23rd, 91 for 1,000 and 196 for 10,000. The all demand is on 1 crore. Now, who will be buying 1 crore? I mean, it's anybody's guess. 10, that means 10,774 crores are there till 23rd. I was sure that by today I'll get the 24th phase, which took a sale which took place in December. We will cross 12,000. Now, having said that, let's go further. I mean, this data is just academic. If anyone wants to see, we can stay here. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. This shows how many were printed, how many. This can we have a little enlarge this thing? No. Anyway, this is the first page of file on which it was mooted to amend the electoral bond scheme. Before I go ahead, I must tell everybody who must have read all this news also. At the time of structuring of electoral bond scheme in 2017 till the January 2018, RBI had totally, Reserve Bank of India totally opposed. When they were pressurized one after another, they had agreed only for 7 days sale twice a year. Notwithstanding, they increased the sale to 10 days, 4 times in a year. And when Lok Sabha election was there, 30 days extra. Now here is that, I mean, what is to come? I'm just brought this slide to say what is the future for this. Dangerous. In March, in Feb last year, we had 3 elections, assembly election in 2008. Now they are due this year, 5 years later. Later we had Karnataka one, that will come. Then we have Chhattisgarh. So if you count, there are 9 such states where the assembly election took place in 2018, and all of them are due. These slides also bring a lot of other things, like Sirish talked about Karnataka election. See how many illegal phases were opened. Not two, as Sirish said. To start with, March sale itself was illegal. It says in lieu. You can't have, if you miss one, go for in lieu. They were not ready. They were not ready in January. In fact, the electoral bond forms were printed around end February, and that is under pressure. First lot was sent. This is the information I got from the uh, security press. Just first lot was just dispatched. So it does not mean that you have March. March is not due as per the notification. That's illegal. Then we go to April, fine. Then July was due. What was not due is the May Karnataka election. That is again illegal. Lot of sale was there, and this also created a record that someone went to Delhi branch saying that we have not been able to encash in 15 days. So we think it is 15 working days. Instead of actually clearly mentioned notification 15 days, if it's a holiday on the date of sale, it is a holiday. On the date of purchase, is a holiday. Government went ahead with such a speed, unbelievable. 24th March, that whoever bought it, customers or clients or who bought it, they approached Delhi branch. Delhi branch wrote to Bombay. Chairman SBI got involved. It was sent back to them proposal. Same day, file was approved. Within hours, message was sent back to Bombay headquarters. Bombay headquarters sent Delhi to please encash. So what 10 crore worth illegal sale took place. There are other issues which it is very important to talk about is so many things happen like allowed. Minister says MOS in the parliament on 18th August 2018 says, I am not aware about this. Any apprehension? Well, the letter was of 2017, 26th May. We had just been talking, which said retrograde step. Not only this, Election Commission has recommended to the Parliament Committee also that those papers are with me. Worried about foreign funding and electoral bond. So these are the things which is going to come this year. And why last 3 slides I have highlighted it. If you see the normal trend is first to 10. The idea is that when you say January, the entire process should be completed because 15 days are given for encashment. In other words, if for a 10th, inclusive of 10th, 24th will be the last date. However, when the Delhi election came, they again played around. Delhi election they conducted from 13 to 22nd to 2020. That means the still election was going on when the encashment period existed. Come to then next Bihar. They took a approval from approval. I'm using the word approval, and now we'll come to next few slide to tell you what's happening now. The same thing was done for Bihar election. Started 19th and went on 20. That means within the same period, they have not completed. The process means 10 days sale plus 14 more days. I say from last date, I'm counting 14 days, otherwise, inclusive 15 days should be completed in that. Now, look at today. January is a normal scheduled sale, not yet announced, because back to back they had three of them: October, November, and December sale. And I am sure my gut feeling is we'll easily cross 12 crore, 12,000 crore sale the moment we get this reply. Now, here is the catch. Now, I'll come back to this when we are talking of what we can do. Now, there are two areas of concern. One is when we are structuring, there were a lot of issues between RBI, Law Ministry. Not only that, Election Commission in any case was there, and all has been covered in the HuffPost stories, and that is for later on that application was filed. But even after that, there has been plenty of concerns, or the existing notification was violated. These are serious concerns. So I would say that this is where we have to concentrate. Even if we believed which was controversially structure was created against the RBI wishes, against the Election Commission wishes, and not only this, Law Ministry say we cannot have promissory note. They were also, the pressures were good enough. Secretary was asked to come have meeting in Finance Ministry. I'm just going from some past file. Not only this, probably SBI didn't know that when this draft notification was sent to them, they also objected to certain clause of 8.2. They said the bonds which are not encashed should be used for cost of commission, or they call commission, but service charges, and as well as printing cost. But government said no problem, government will pay, means taxpayers will pay. As of today, we have crossed 10 crore of amount which taxpayers are paying for printing cost and the commission cost. Commission cost is charged on a two different way. One is a physical purchase, one is a digital purchase. Physical purchase is pretty expensive, and that's it. So we quickly got to kya hua? What is happening? I don't know from where this alarm came. So now we go to slide. These are the what we are lying ahead of us in. We have to be very careful. Unless we go to, once again we have to go back to the Supreme Court, not waiting for end January, because January sale ke baad they will open 15 days for Fab. You see, assembly elections are coming. Now, what can be done in this case, beside the other points I'll be talking? We need we have filed as and when some exposures came, whether it was through HuffPost or my documents or later on, we filed immediately appeal, which General Verma very explained that one after another application was being filed, and the last one was the special affidavit was filed after the amendment to this act. I have a strong feeling that we should consolidate do into one place. If you go to Supreme Court, they don't have time, they won't go through each and every application. So the entire difficulties faced or violation of the existing scheme itself for 2018 must be brought out in one consolidated way. A special mention must be mentioned. Next slide, please. Now, here I was saying, काफी हौसले बहुत बड़े हैं, बुलंद हैं आजकल सरकार के. This is where it was there. Every time the MCC was enforced, Ministry of Finance would take approval from the Election Commission. The word is approval, whether they can go ahead, and after they cleared it even in MCC, but with two conditions. If you see the bottom 1 and 2, that nobody will be talking about it. Is it happening? And all the conditions of model code of conduct will be followed. On the other hand, my complaint in the Election Commission, violation of model code of conduct was filed immediately after amendment was issued. I said it is a financial policy matter. It was not only sale, it was a policy matter was changed during the MCC. The file which I have received back from and this is a letter from that file only. Uh, the what reply has got is a matter is in Supreme Court. That is the final noting which is signed by the CEC. Next, please. Because time is short, so we'll have to fast. Next slide. Now, मैंने अभी कहा ना हौसले बुलंद हैं. See very carefully this letter. On 3rd of December, the sale which is 24th phase going on, they wrote to Election Commission about intimating that we are going for a press release. And Election Commission writes back that while you are sending me this letter, they put the time also on WhatsApp as well as email at 13:47. By the time press release was already on both on the uh, Department of Economic Affairs website as well as in PIB was a lot, and you are asking us. Now it was no question of taking approval. Now it is by बता दिया है आपको बाद में भी और ये पहले. That's the situation. So things are very, very out of control. We need to move forward. As I said, not wait for end January. We consolidate all our documents which separate applications were filed. What was the serious issue? And this is what's going to happen coming 9 elections are taking place in the year of 2023. So just imagine how much of uh, sale will take place. Now in January, I was expecting on 2nd onwards because first was a holiday. 2nd to 11th, they are following the same process what they did in Bihar election and they did in Delhi election. They'll go in such a fashion that it will move forward to February, I guess so. And February they have another 3 elections coming up. So May after the 15 days they divide 4 days sale and all that. They'll continue like this. So it is a very serious situation, and we got to act accordingly. And regarding funding and all that we were talking, as per the SBI October reply, there are 25 political parties as of now who are eligible. 19, as General Verma mentioned, who have so far declared this thing. So we don't know. We know about 19 parties, but we don't know about the remaining. And surprisingly, between January and October, we have moved from 22, 23, 24. Every time now, every month, every application also asks this question, and we are going to 25 in October. There's a similar question is there in my 24th. We should be getting it. But the money we are talking of in uneven level field is not coming through electoral bond. What about the earlier we just talked anonymous money is less than 20,000 cash, 20,000 or below cash. This is all anonymous. We are talking in crores. Then FCRA. Impact of FCRA is that we got to study the organization who possibly giving a backup to the political parties are allowed to FCRA. They become the grassroots workers and use this money. And there's a lot of such funds are flowing from abroad. In another case, I just checked the kind of NGOs or association existing in abroad, unbelievable. And they're free. If they have a FCRA right, they will be sending to the authorized people, even the Vivekanand Ashram and all. So when FCRA for Prime Minister Relief Fund, the question was asked, they say we gave it. Hindu wrote that they have gone overboard, but the next day clarification was given in Hindu. So these are the things. Money is coming from abroad. Forget that 7.5. Forget election commission said it's a retrograde step. It will create shell companies. This exactly told the parliament committee, which report has never come out. Although linking Aadhaar and election card comes overnight, but those recommendations lying in the this thing. My RTI in our Rajya Sabha say we can't give you information, but this not been decided. That was my last thing. And that is what MCC, we had the MCC, and this is the outcome from MCC. I think there are plenty of points I have, but I'll not go into. So my point is that we should consolidate irregularity during the structure, RBI raise, Election Commission raise, Law Commission raise. Then even within the law which they frame, how many violations had taken place. We should do that. Now, because of that 2018, you saw illegal 4 or 5 of them slots. They have now amended to regularize that. That itself speaks that they went irregular. Amendment shows that they went irregular opening those things, which Siri mentioned it. Thank you so much. I think more we will answer it when somebody asks. There's plenty to share, but I'll cut short. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commodore Batra. Okay, so we are a little behind schedule. It's already 5:44. Uh, are there any questions, Nandini? Okay. How big is the threat of foreign company influencing electioneering in India using the electoral bond scheme? Prabhash K. Datta. I think some of the speakers have already commented on this, so we need not really go into this. Next, please. Next question. What are the risk challenges of making it absolutely transparent? Prabhash Datta. Are there any risks involved in this? Professor Sahu, you will like to comment?
We wish.
See, there is absolutely, I mean, unless the government of the day, wants this step, which is very, very, foundational, or I would say the kind of a uh, springboard on which entire transparency is preserved and maintained. Without disclosure, without bringing who are the donors. That's what other speaker like Mr. Venkatesh Nayak and other also have emphasized. So there is no absolutely no problem. We don't have any complaint about this new scheme of donation. Donations are required, and political parties needs money to run system and fight elections. But it has to be done in a transparent manner, and that is what missing in electoral bond scheme. By preserving this maintaining this anonymity and allowing donors in whichever way they can donate whoever with all kind of flexibility. So we are actually have allowed the kind of uncontrolled kind of sort of influence of especially the corporate day. Because if you see 92% of whatever data is available, 92% of donation coming through electoral bonds are above 1 crores. That itself
94.
shows
94.
94.
I
Okay,
just showed
90,
you this.
okay.
93.955.
Yeah, so just imagine actually who are the donors. So if this is their names, their sort of identity is not revealed, this is the biggest kind of threat to democracy. Because this is why many countries, many advanced countries, Japan, Germany, which faced a lot of actually business politics nexus, and the scandals, kind of massive scandals have erupted in those countries in the past decades. They have actually put a complete ban on corporate donations, and they have allowed their system to create mechanism and incentives in which political parties can tap resources. For instance, in Germany, they have resources, sort of incentive for parties like green parties, or the socialist party, which cannot actually, which do not accept any donation from the corporates, or the business houses. So the government of the day has created sort of mechanism in which those parties are supported, and that's how new ideas come also into the system. Unfortunately, we don't have such a system, and we have a system which actually allows the I would say complete sort of influence of the corporates into the political system. And that sort of quid pro quo, that deep nexus damages policy environment, because policy can be easily influenced. You have seen the case of America is the biggest example, where that wealthy donors, they capture the policy space and influence many of the critical policy, whether it's on climate issues, or whether it's on green issues, or many of those environmentally degrading kind of policies are pushed by the corporates, many of those industries. So that we have to actually stop. And
Okay.
transparency is a hallmark. It's a non-negotiable sort of things.
Thank you, Professor Sau. Maybe Mr. Datta was alluding to the fact that the then finance minister in the parliament had said, when he was asked as to why the names are not being disclosed. So he said, no, when there is a fear of reprisals by the other parties when they come to power. But that is not to be taken seriously. I think nobody really believes that.
Ju-
Next question, please. We are running short of time, so I'll just our state funded elections. Okay, this is not really the topic today, and we are very short of time. Is there any other question? Who handles the money? Is public finance or state funding of laws a possibility in India because the expense at which the elections are conducted? Uh, well, this is again not really related to our subject today, but there is plenty of material available on this. Maybe some other time we can handle it. Okay. Any other? When next plea of hearing is coming in the court? I mentioned that it was court has said last week of January 2023. So let's hope it is heard. Next question. Is there any other question? Large. Okay, this is not
Not related.
not relevant to our topic today. Does any other civil electoral bond scheme as in India? I don't think any other country has. I may be corrected if anybody has other views. Any of the panelists? No,
I
I
just,
don't think any other country has.
at the end, I like to add one point.
Yes, please.
No, after finish your question answer.
Okay. Is it a good idea to change in code when there is no longer anything to be once the Apex code rules? Okay, that's a good question. And I was about to ask, after the question and answer session, I think we'll keep this as the last question of Rosama Thomas. Uh, I had asked in my opening remarks as to what can be done. And, 2 points I had mentioned. One was that this amendment, which has been done in November last year, was when a bunch of petitions is already existing in the Supreme Court. And secondly, when the MCC, the Model Code of Conduct, was in vogue because of the Himachal and the Gujarat elections. I had asked, what do you think? What can be done? And the second question I had asked was, why is a constitution bench necessary? That is what the Supreme Court has said now. So, two suggestions have come from Mr. Venkatesh. He said that one, this thing of going against this scheme is to flood the SBI with hundreds and thousands of RTIs. And Commodore Lokesh Batra has recommended that all the various affidavits and additional affidavits that ADR and Common Cause have been filing over the last couple of years, we should consolidate all of that and again put it up to the court before the hearing in the end of the January. So now we come to this question: is it a good idea to challenge when there is no longer anything else to be done once the apex court rules? Can we have the views of Dr. Fawd Halim?
See, ultimately, if the oligarchs and the corporate structure overtakes the political system and they are penetrative enough to this extent that not only the legislature, the parliament, the executive, the political executive, the bureaucratic executive, and part of the judiciary are also compliant. In that case, this question has to be taken up socially and it has to be fought on the streets and politically has to be countered. In the interim, the other suggestions that are there, they have to be seriously taken up by people who are conscious enough that these agendas can be addressed within the framework of the constitution. Ultimately, you have to repose faith in the judiciary, and the highest judiciary definitely has the scope of moving from a single judge to a multiple bench to a constitutional bench. So I think so those avenues have to be explored in totality. The suggestion of filing multiple RTIs, I think so, is also a route for the activists. As far as our political party is concerned, we are seriously noting, as I repeat myself, there seems to be a degree of judicial reluctance to actually take up the matter in a time bound fashion, and that is a cause of concern as far as we are concerned at this point of time.
Dr. Ford, if I may just ask, I mean, your political party, of course, is very clear. You have filed a petition against the electoral bonds. You are not accepting money through electoral bonds. But we are seeing that slowly the number of political parties which is accepting electoral bonds is increasing. So it is gaining popularity. And the basic logic, as I see it, is that tomorrow some other party will come into power and they will benefit.
Well, there are two parts to this. Number one is that there's an ideological position that various political parties have to take, and secondly is the question of fait accompli. So I think so. Most of the political organizations, other than the communist parties here and a few other parties, they may be like your organization itself, have taken an ideological position on electoral bonds. Now that stems from top to bottom. The rank and file of the political organization and the hierarchy has to be committed to that and make resources other than electoral bonds available, mobilize it, and ensure that the party structure, what you call, runs. Some political organization may consider fait accompli because they do not have the capacity or the ideological consistency to continue with that. So that that will vary across the political spectrum. When you have a myriad of what you call thought processes functioning in society, they're going to have these myriad of problems. That is not part of the issue that is of concern. The question of concern at the moment is that if you have a difference of opinion with the what you call ruling hierarchy on questions that are important and embedded in our constitution, whereby the rights of the common man have to be protected, and the process in which those decisions, in which the rights of the common man are being protected, if those processes are influenced by factors which are going to change that fundamental vertical protection of rights, then that ideological position has to be protected by the constitution. A political party can't protect that process, that the transparency of that process, where that process leads to in actually undermining the rights of the common people, how major policy decisions are going to be influenced by this. That has to be protected by the constitution. So this question for us, as far as the CPIM is concerned, is a question of protecting the constitution and the way the constitution sees an individual in his or her relationship with the state that we call India. So that's purely ideological, and I think so it stems from there. Now, the other political parties may have different opinions. I think so that we will have to keep that in mind as we go ahead.
Okay, thank
I
you.
want to add something, General Verma, if permitted.
Yeah, last point, please. We
Yeah,
are way behind.
there
Yeah,
one
please.
question was asked that uncashed money, which is not in cash. What was the amount? It is 23 crore 68 lakh 42,000, which has been transferred till the 23rd phase to Prime Minister National Relief Fund. The other thing, when I am talking of, the consolidating it, I have a suggestion with the other parties who have done it. We dealing from your other cases. You see, whenever there's a cause list, you see as a series of cases are listed. And obviously, they do not. We should only say this time when we consolidate, and other party can join us. CPIM representative is here. With that, we want this hearing only for electoral bond. The moment you see last any cause list came, 5 cases, including Ashwini Upadhyay's case. So, I mean, nobody can take so many cases in one lot. Nothing will happen to electoral bond. So, we should say strictly one case only for electoral bond, and possibly
Okay.
that common cause CPIM and ADR can join and file that case after consolidating document. Say, keep the other like amendment to 2000 finance bills, FCRA, those cases should be separately taken because
Okay.
this is most damaging the democracy. This is
All
my
right.
strong view. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Venkatesh, any closing remarks?
It's not a closing remark, it's an audacious idea. It just came out of what Dr. Halim, responded, the social action. But the audacious idea, for two reasons. One is it'll require us to spend a little bit of money from our pockets. And the other is we might invite the charge of contempt of court. And I'm willing to volunteer. And the reason I'm making this suggestion is because I know ADR is in touch with people interested in cleaner politics around the country. So there are thousands of people. Idea is this: can we spend 1,000 next tranche of EB sale, buy one electoral bond, attach a letter saying, "Dear Mr. Chief Justice of India, please list the electoral bonds cases for hearing because it's an urgent matter. It affects our democracy. Parliamentary elections are down the line. 9 elections are likely to be held in this year itself. So we need this matter to be decided quickly. If 100 people were to attach one electoral bond each to one such letter, send it to the Chief Justice of India, very humble, very polite, and say this is just to not to condemn you, but to highlight our concerns regarding clean politics in India, which is free of money power. Muscle power, we can talk about that later on. If we can do that, I am willing to volunteer.
Okay, thank you, Venkatesh. Okay, so last, my comment on this question of Rosama Thomas is that even if the apex court gives a ruling and it is not in our favor, or let's say they say it's all right, let the scheme continue, that's not the end of the matter. I just want to quote the ADR landmark judgment of 2002 2003, after which the affidavits came into being. If you recall, in 2002, all the political parties got together and the government of the day also, and they passed an ordinance in the parliament, which was sent to the President of India, Abdul Kalam ji, at that time. First time he returned it, but the second time he had to sign it. But then ADR again went to the court, and the Supreme Court heard the petition again, and they struck down the ordinance as unconstitutional. So there is hope. I mean, we should not say that nothing will be done if the apex court has ruled once. I think with that, we'll call an end to today's discussion. It was very fruitful. And thank you, everyone, the panelists, for their very erudite and very analytical and very exhaustive comments and presentations. And also the audience who's been listening patiently, and some of the questions. I'm sorry that we couldn't answer all of them because some were out of the purview of today's discussion. And we hope to see you again on a different topics sometime soon. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thanks so much
so
for
much. Thank you all friends, all panelists. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We appreciate your visiting our websites adrindia.org and mynetha.info and listening to our podcasts and webinars. We appreciate all the support you have given to us. Please continue that support and donate at adrindia.org. Thank you.